Welcome back. The Russian Defense Ministry said today it's taken down Krasna, Hora, a settlement 7 kilometers from Bakhmut, the scene of fierce fighting between Russian and Ukrainian troops in the last few weeks. Just a day early on Sunday, Yevgeny Prigozhin, the co-founder of Russia's Wagner Group, said his mercenary forces had taken the village and promised to capture Bakhmut. Bakhmut is in the Donetsk region. It's a major objective for Russian President Vladimir Putin. And months of Russian shelling have already left much of it in ruins. With the first anniversary of Russia sending troops into Ukraine approaching and a big new Kremlin offensive anticipated, the situation there has become even more acute. The Ukrainian military reported Russian shelling all along the front line and said 16 settlements had been bombarded near Bakhmut. It said that over the past day, its forces repelled a number of attacks near Bakhmut, as well as assaults in Kharkiv, Luhansk and Zaporizhia regions. The capture of Bakhmut would give President Putin a new foothold in the Donetsk region and a rare victory after several months of setbacks. The Russian assault has been spearheaded by mercenaries of the Wagner Group who have made small but steady gains. Donetsk and Luhansk regions make up the Donbass, Ukraine's industrial heartland. Russia partially occupies it and wants to win full control. The United States has told citizens to leave Russia immediately due to the war in Ukraine and the risk of arbitrary arrest or harassment by Russian law enforcement agencies. According to a statement from the U.S. Embassy in Moscow, U.S. citizens residing or traveling in Russia should depart immediately. Said so on its website. It said advised them, to exercise increased caution due to the risk of wrongful detentions. It also urged people not to travel to Russia. The U.S. has repeatedly warned its citizens to leave Russia. The last such public warning was in September after President Vladimir Putin ordered a partial mobilization. The embassy said Russian security services have arrested U.S. citizens on spurious charges, singled out U.S. citizens in Russia for detention and harassment, denied them fair and transparent treatment, and convicted them in secret trials or without presenting credible evidence. According to the embassy, Russian authorities arbitrarily enforce local laws against U.S. citizens, religious workers, and have opened questionable criminal investigations against U.S. citizens engaged in religious activity. Russia has opened a criminal case against the United States citizens on suspicion of espionage, according to the Federal Security Service in January. Well, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has told reporters he fears new major Russian offensive in Ukraine almost 1 year after Moscow launched the war that has already started. Speaking ahead of the meeting of the military alliance, Mr. Stoltenberg said there was no sign the Russian President Vladimir Putin was preparing for peace. He's called on NATO members to continue providing urgent military support to Kyiv. Stoltenberg says he expects the issue of supplying aircraft to Ukraine to be discussed at an upcoming two-day meeting.
So we need to ramp up production and invest in our production capacity. NATO has just completed an extraordinary survey of our munition stockpiles, and we plan to increase our targets for munition stockpiles through the NATO defense planning process.
Do you believe that this is the start of the major Russian offensive that you've been warning?
Well, I think the reality is that we have seen the start already. Because we've seen what Russia does now, President Putin do now, is to send in thousands of more troops, accepting a very high rate of casualty. The most important message is that we see no sign whatsoever that President Putin is preparing for peace or ready to negotiate something which will respect the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine. What we see is that President Putin and Russia still wants to control Ukraine. And therefore, the only way to ensure that Ukraine prevails as a sovereign nation is to continue to provide military support to Ukraine.
Well, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says, has hailed efforts to restore power generation systems that were damaged by Russian attacks, but is warning the population it's too early to declare victory on the energy front. During his regular evening broadcast, President Zelensky said power workers had done such a good job repairing the damage caused by Russian missile and drone strikes on Friday that many people had not had to face too many outages on Saturday and on Sunday. He said scheduled energy outages would once again be in place when the working week starts today.
Today, I would like to pay particular attention to all those who are restoring the energy capabilities of our country. The majority of Ukrainians passed this day and yesterday without many power outages. Of course, there were still restrictions in some regions and cities. There, where the degree of destruction is too significant. Of course, with the beginning of a new working week, consumption will increase, and therefore, there will be outage schedules. But the very fact that after constant terrorist attacks with rockets and Shahed drones, after a massive missile strike this week, we can have such peaceful energy days proves the professionalism of our energy workers and the extraordinary dedication of everyone who works to preserve our energy system. We have to realize this is not a decisive victory on the energy front. Unfortunately, there may be new terrorist attacks from Russia.
On the global financial system, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called for a new commitment to raise the needs and voices of developing countries, saying a new debt architecture is needed that encompasses debt relief and restructuring to vulnerable countries, including middle-income ones in need. Mr. Guterres was addressing the General Assembly weeks before the first anniversary on February 24 of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which he said is inflicting untold suffering on the people of Ukraine with profound global implications.
Something is fundamentally wrong with our economic and financial system. The global financial architecture is at the heart of the problem. It should be the means through which globalization benefits all, yet it is failing. The global financial architecture does not need a simple evolution, it needs a radical transformation. It is time for a new Bretton Woods moment. A new commitment to place the dramatic needs of developing countries at the center of every decision and mechanism of the global financial system. And I have a special message for fossil fuel producers and their enablers scrambling to expand production and raking in monster profits. If you cannot set a credible course for net zero, with 2025 and 2030 targets covering all your operations, you should not be in business. Your core product is our core problem. We need a renewables revolution, not a self-destructive fossil fuel resurgence. Global emissions must be halved this decade, and that means far more ambitious action to cut carbon pollution by speeding up the shift from fossil fuels to renewable energy, especially in G20 countries, and decarbonizing highest emitting industrial sectors like steel, cement, shipping and aviation. It means delivering on the just energy transition partnerships with South Africa, Indonesia and Vietnam, and expanding on this cooperation through a climate solidarity pact, in which all big emitters make an extra effort to cut emissions and wealthier countries mobilize financial and technical resources to support emerging economies in a common effort, a commonly planned effort to keep 1.5 alive.